for a long time had the commission form of government, and it wasn't really working out for us, at least in my opinion, and in others. But the commission form of government, we did on occasion had a complete turnover at the same time of our entire 5 council members. And that commission form of government allowed that to happen. If you can imagine what it's like to one day you have 5 people and they're all gone at the same time. And the new people come on really have no experience or education at all. It was a disaster. So we didn't want that to happen again. Then the other thing was we needed to have someone that was trained and experienced in being um, a manager of all the department heads. The problem with the commission form of government before was that each department head had 2 bosses. One was the city administrator, and the other one was the elected official. And the elected official had the ability to overrule the city administrator. And then the final thing really is it all comes about leadership and strategic long-term planning. We had a comprehensive plan before in our commission form of government. And with that, we spent money and time in developing this comprehensive plan. Once it was developed, all the council members, commissioners, they decided to go their own direction. That comprehensive plan we put together just sit on a shelf. There's a group of businessmen, leadership in our community that met on a regular basis. And and I was not a member of that group as the mayor, but they were all the leaders in both legal areas, industrial, colleges, banks, a lot of areas. And they invited me to come to a meeting. And what they asked me was one question: what do we need to do with city government to move ahead economically and strategically? And my immediate answer was, we need to change the form of government. And I said to them, and they didn't really know what other options were available, or how it actually worked. But I said to them, you're going to have a referendum. And there was about 20, 25 people in that group that were listening to me. And I gave them an outline. I handed out some material to them. I let them kind of take it and run with it. And they called me up later and said, okay, we've decided that we're going to raise money to hire an expert to help us through this process to educate the voters. And we're going to do it ourselves. And my role was simply to, if they had questions, is to try to answer those questions. The citizen group hired an outside marketing professional firm that has been able to pass referendums. And they talked about a couple of things. One person in charge, think strategically, and run the city like a business. And that was sort of their theme throughout the process. And they tried to explain it to the voters in simple terms. Why do we want to make the change? And having one person in charge, I think, hit well with some of the voters. And then strategically and running the city like a business, which I think does not happen. We have 5 council members before, 4 of them commissioners, and of course the mayor, which was myself at that time. And I strongly believed that we needed to make this change. 3 of the 5 council members were opposed to it. So that made it a little more difficult, but it really came down to the citizens. The citizens they passed the referendum to make the change. And the one thing our council today, they want to be transparent to the voters. And indeed, so does everybody. So we're working on a comprehensive plan where you bring in the department heads, the council members, the citizens to put that together. And once we have that comprehensive plan this time, I think we're going to be able to go forward because that's what the voters said they wanted. Well, I came from the corporate world, and it's structured organizationally. I've always kind of worked in that kind of environment where, and this is not speaking down about who was elected, but literally no one of the other four council members had any or very little leadership roles or managerial roles they were ever in. And I, on the other hand, had worked in both corporate world, and I was also on the school board for 11 years, and they worked that way. And I said, why are we being so different here and trying to run a city where everybody can be replaced at one time? You have, again, every department head has two bosses, and they don't necessarily always agree. It was a very poor way to run any organization. I had experience in going through that in my corporate jobs as an executive with a telecommunications company. So to me, it only made sense that we hire an outside recruiting firm to help us in this search. And that's what we indeed did do. In fact, this citizen group almost demanded of us, said, don't go just inside, look outside and see what's there. And even though they were primarily talking to me and not the other council members about that, I felt like it was worth the effort to see what was out there. We had a city administrator, much like a city manager, but doesn't have all the powers. We had a city administrator that was well liked by the citizens, well liked by the employees, and had a lot of experience. And so that person wanted the new city manager job. I felt strongly that we needed, as we used an outside firm and they began the recruiting process and narrowed it down, they narrowed it down to 3 or 4 people, and our internal candidate was one of those. And so we went through that whole process, which took several months to go through, trying to get the person to fit the job description and the salary range, and would want to fit into the community and all those things. It ended up that our city administrator was the best candidate. And so, and by the way, the city administrator, it was awkward because he knew he had to run against everybody else. And it wasn't even just Illinois, it was areas from throughout the Midwest. And so anyway, but he was chosen by everybody, including the council in the end also voted for him. And for him, it was a vote of confidence. He said, look, I'd been in a role as a city administrator, not quite the same as a city manager, but when I was elected as the candidate that won, then it made him feel very good about being able to take over. And so far, he's done an outstanding job. We really needed to try to get people to run that could be good leaders, good long-term thinkers strategically. And young people rarely are running for office for a lot of reasons. They're newly married, they're just buying houses, they're starting a new job, they're very busy. But changing the form of government, by the way, actually opens that up to people. The managerial form of government doesn't require council members to run departments. What it requires council members to do is just a few things. They certainly have to come to council meetings, and they get to vote on everything. In fact, they're their only voters. But it also, they're involved in the comprehensive plan, and that sets the long-term tone of where the city's going. And it frees up the time. The mayor, myself, and the council members are going to have to put in less time, but have a bigger role in the long-term success of the cities. It also helps you recruit those young people, saying, look, you're not going to have to be up here working days and nights and running departments and trying to learn all that stuff. You are going to set the tone of what the city is going to look like for people like you. So where do you get them? How do you get them? Well, I think it's a big part of the mayor's job. I think you need to start going out and talking to groups, service clubs. You need to go to schools. You need to go to churches. You need to go to. We've got a 20 under 40 group, top 20 people in our community that are under the age of 40 that seem to be growing well. Go to those people and talk to them and say how important it is to start building your community to lead young people, not the older group. That's me, by the way, but to have younger people involved in government. I hope when I leave office as mayor that I've got a couple of young people on the council and are thinking about where they're going with the future of our city. I'm not saying you have to be in the military at all to be a council member, but I will tell you that it does help build structure and think long term, not day to day and what you need to do tomorrow, but what you need to do next year and 5 years and 10 years from now. And you've got a strong organizational structure. And what that means is you have a person in charge, you have council members that advise that person. They still play a critical role. I want to make it clear that you don't have to be in the military to run cities well. It's just
Right.
a good design. I think the managerial form of government is like playing chess, where you're always thinking 5 or more moves ahead, as opposed to playing checkers, where you're thinking about the next 1 or 2 moves.